have seen. I have seen the affliction of my people which is in Egypt, and I have heard their groanings, and am come down to deliver them. And now come, I will send thee to Egypt.
Hurry, children! Hurry! Hurry! God will protect us in the old kiln. The soldiers won't look for us there. Now you all must be very quiet and wait for Mama Lillian. I'll be right back. Lord, give me strength to move this dead soldier. Now we must remember to trust. Wadea, where are the babies? I thought that you...
Mama, I was too scared to get them.
I must go back.
You can't go back there. The soldiers will kill you. Please stay here. What will we do without you?
God will protect me, and he will protect you. Now I must go rescue my babies. Edward, watch over the little ones and keep them quiet. Topha, you help Edward. And whatever you do, do not leave the kiln, and keep praying.
Stop! Over here. I think I saw someone.
Father, you have made blind eyes see. Now please make seeing eyes blind and hearing ears deaf.
She has to be around here somewhere. She can't hide 100 hungry children for long. I hope I'm the one to shoot her. Egypt doesn't need battling English women.
Mama, I didn't know you were English.
I'm not. I'm American. But because Egypt is at war with England, they're suspicious of anyone who speaks English. We're caught in the middle of their war. Now be very quiet.
You, soldiers, over here. We've been called back to the front. We got more important duties to take care of than this woman and her worthless orphans. We'll come back when she least expects us. Her God can't protect her forever.
Mama, can we go home yet? The little ones are scared.
Not yet, Edward. It may be a trap.
Mama, look at your leg. You must have hurt it when you fell.
Oh, it's fine, Moisha. I'm sure. Well, maybe I will just rest it for a few minutes. Edward, will you please find Psalm 91? Remember we used it in our devotions tonight? You have such a good voice for reading, and we all love to hear you read.
1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked, because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High thy habitation. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling.
Can we go home yet? I'm getting tired, and Tasha's scared.
And not.
Now, children, I know it's uncomfortable, but we must stay here and be very quiet.
Can we play a game?
No, silly. Games are too loud.
I know what we can do. Mama Lillian, I know you told us not to bring anything, but I couldn't help it. Besides, I only brought one thing.
You mean Brung did.
Malik, what is it that you brought?
I brought this because I knew how important it was to you. I heard you once tell us this is why you came to Egypt, isn't it?
Yes, Malik. This sketchbook is why I came to Egypt, at least in part. Okay, I'll tell you, but you must be quiet. Malik, don't even think about it. Now, let's start with the very first picture. Once, a very long time ago, there was a little girl, just about your age. She loved very much to draw. She drew pictures of people and trees and old barns, but her favorite picture of all was of an old log. Now, the day that she drew this picture, the picture of the old log, was a very special day in her memory. Now, all of her drawings told stories, and this story, the story of the old log, was always her very favorite story of all. Now, she didn't know it yet, but she had a very important meeting that day. It was the most important appointment of her whole life, because her appointment was with God.
when there is so much to do?
Yes, there is so much to do, isn't there?
Do you live here in Asheville?
Yes. Well, I mean, no. Well, yes, until today anyway. I guess I must sound awfully confused. Really, I'm just excited. This is my first trip by train. My family moved here about a year ago, and before that we lived in Brunswick, Georgia. I'm going there now to visit some old friends, and then I'm off to Atlanta, where I hope to settle down.
Atlanta's a big old place. Up and coming, they say. When I was there, they put in the new fancy electric trolleys, and there are big factories and coal being mined everywhere around the city. Lots of new churches being built, even now. Only 2 churches in Atlanta survived the Civil War, you know. Such awful destruction. I remember that time when... Never mind. But what are you gonna do in such a big city? Are you getting married there?
Oh, no. I'm taking a job working for the newspaper, or at least I hope to. I have arranged an interview with the art editor of the Atlanta Georgian. That's why I have my sketchbook. If he likes my drawings...
My. Would you really work on a newspaper? A young girl of your obvious refinement?
Well, I am 17.
I see. Well, it is 1905, and I suppose times are changing. But the thought of young girls, even ones as old and mature as 17, off on their own with a job. My, what is happening in the world today? Do you think you can manage?
Well, I expect so. I've been drawing things for as long as I can remember. Oh, and my mother has a friend in Atlanta that I can stay with until I'm settled. Oh, by the way, my name is Lillian Trasher.
Of course. Please forgive me for not introducing myself. My name is Myrtle Perry. Miss Myrtle Perry. Though you wouldn't know it by the number of children I have.
Well, I'm very pleased to meet you, Miss Perry.
Maddie. Everyone calls me Maddie.
Maddie it is. Tell me, Maddie, just how many children do you have?
Let's see. Last count, I believe it was an even 100.
100?
But the Lord brings in more all the time. I run the Faith Orphanage in Marion, North Carolina. Have you heard of it?
No. If you have the time, I would love to hear about your orphanage.
Oh, it's not my orphanage. It's the Lord's.
I'm intrigued. Who supports it?
Well, the same one who owns it, child.
But Maddie, somebody has to buy food and clothes and provide shelter, even if it does belong to the Lord.
That's just what I mean. The Lord does provide for all our needs. In some way and through someone, God sends us everything we need. We live from day to day on faith.
All the time?
All the time. Food, clothing, shelter, medicine. God never fails. Never has, never will. Right now, I have no food for our supper tomorrow night, and no money to buy the food for 100 children. But God knows right now where tomorrow's supper is coming from.
What great faith you must have.
No, my dear, it's not a matter of great faith, but of faith in a great God.
But how could anyone,
My dear, do you think I'm the first to learn of this? No. I learned of this way of life from a man named George Mueller in Bristol, England. Day by day, year by year, George Mueller dared to believe God of his word, and God proved himself faithful. George Mueller fed, clothed, and housed over 10,000 orphans at a cost of over $8 million. And still today, the George Mueller Homes has no support of any man, but relies on God and God alone.
My. Miss Maddie, you have truly given me something to think about. It's just
All
remarkable.
aboard! Last train to Atlanta.
Do more than think about it, child. Now, sometimes thinking isn't the right thing to do. Sometimes doing is the right thing to do.
What do you mean?
I don't believe things happen to the Lord's children by chance. I think we were meant to sit together, and I was meant to tell you about the orphanage. In fact, I am badly in need of an assistant. Why don't you come live with me and help with the children? You could continue your Bible education in your spare time. Remember, child, there is no end to what you can do when you follow God's call and trust Him to take care of the rest.
There is no end to what you can do when you follow God's call and trust Him to take care of the rest.
Is that what you did, Mama Lillian? Is that why you're our mama?
I'm confused. This isn't a story about a log at all.
Well, yes indeed, Sarai, this is a story about a log. And Edward, I didn't know it yet, but when I stepped over that log that day, I was taking my next step on a very exciting journey. Do you remember when I told Miss Maddie that I was going to visit some friends in Brunswick? Well, that very first night in Brunswick.
Tell me everything, Lily. What is it like to ride on the train?
Well,
Is it really smoky?
No.
Did you eat on the train? Did they cook the food on the train?
I don't recall.
Did you see any strange men on the train?
Men? Yes, there were men on the train. Of course, I didn't talk to any of them. They all seemed nice, though. You know what? I think I would have talked to one of them. I mean, if there'd been the need to, of course.
Lily, you wouldn't.
Oh, Journey, naturally, I wouldn't do anything wrong or indecent, but, well, most men are people, too. I believe that in this day and age, if things get desperate enough and there wasn't any woman handy, that God could use even men and Yankees.
Well, I don't see how that could be. But I guess you've lived way up in North Carolina, so you know more about what the Yankees are capable of than I do. But my granddaddy always
Journey,
said,
the Civil War is over, finished, and it has been for years now. It's time that we get the fear and the distrust out of our hearts and our minds, that we just reach out to others, even those who don't think like we do. Didn't mean to preach. I'm sorry.
well, you must be right, because you sure can preach like a man. You know how I could tell that was such a good sermon?
How?
Because it made me hungry. Come on, let's go home and eat.
In a minute. Could I talk to you about something first? I mean, you are my best friend.
Sure, silly.
Well, I don't know how to describe my problem, if it is a problem. I just feel that I'm searching for something that's just out of my reach, and well, I don't know what it is that I'm searching for. It just seems that there's something missing in my life.
I remember when Mother and Father told you about the cross, how your life changed several years ago when you turned your life over to Jesus. So that can't be what's missing. Maybe you're just excited about your interview at the newspaper tomorrow morning. I've seen your drawings, and they're really very good. 3 months from now, your drawings will be on the front page of the Atlanta Georgian, and everyone will know the name, Lillian Trasher. And a handsome young man will see you and you'll fall madly in love.
Oh, Journey, you are hopeless. I was being serious.
I'm sorry. I know how hard it must be to be looking for something. You don't know what you're looking for. I wish I could give you some direction. All I can say is keep praying. And I will keep praying for you too. Somehow I get the feeling that what you want is not so far away.
So do I, but sometimes I think I'll never find it.
You will. You seek it with all of your heart. But right now, I think I better go help Mother finish preparing supper.
Thank you, Journey. You really are such a dear friend. I'll come help with supper.
Oh, no, you don't. I think you have another appointment first. Maybe even more important than your appointment at the newspaper. I'll tell Mother you'll be back in about an hour.
But
say, Lily, isn't this the same log you knelt at when you first prayed to Jesus? Asked him to forgive your sins and come into your life?
Lord, I want to be your girl. And if ever I can do anything for you, just let me know and I will do it. I said that to you a long time ago, Lord, right here. But I still mean it. seeing me, Mr. Howard. I've been looking forward to this interview. I've seen your work on the Atlanta Georgian, and I'm just so...
Yes, I know. You are very impressed. Everyone who wants to work here tells me that.
Oh.
So you are Lillian Trasher. I assume those are your sketches?
It's Trasher. And yes, here, I'm sorry. I've been drawing things for several years now, ever since I was younger. If you'd like, I could draw something else for you. Maybe a drawing of your office so that you could compare my drawing to reality?
No. I can see that your portfolio is quite good and quite realistic indeed. Yes, Ms. Trasher. I am very impressed. But the truth is,
I see. I'm so sorry for taking
no,
the time.
Miss Trasher, you do not see. One thing you must learn about the newspaper business is it's not your responsibility to jump to conclusions. You are merely to report, or in your case, draw the news.
I see.
I hope so. Now, the truth is, I have a splitting headache and a 5 o'clock deadline I am not even close to making. Please, leave your sketches with me. Come back tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock sharp. I hate to put you off, but I do have several other applicants yet to interview, and in my current and painful frame of mind, I cannot give your drawings the attention they deserve. When you come back tomorrow morning, I will let you know then if you have the position or not. But looking at your work, quickly as I have, I'd say there's a chance. A very good chance you will soon be working at the Atlanta Georgian.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Howard. Thank you. I look forward to our
Yes,
meeting.
yes. On your way out, please have my secretary, Mrs. Whiting, send in my headache powder.
Was it just like Judy said?
Did you get the job?
And get famous?
And fall in love with a handsome man?
Well, let me see. That's no, and sort of, and no, and yes. But that's getting ahead of my story. I was very nervous during my interview with Mr. Howard, but still he had almost guaranteed me the job. And I knew that since my talent came from God, that God would bless me. Why else would he give me the talent to draw if I wasn't supposed to use it? Well, I left Mr. Howard's office happier than I ever remembered being. Hadn't I just prayed the night before and told God he could use me for anything that he needed? So I walked down Marietta Street then and nearly lost myself in the busy, scurrying streets of Atlanta. I had never seen anything like it before. I walked all the way from the newspaper office down to Rich's department store on Whitehall Street, and I looked at the fancy tailored dresses in the windows. I admired the kid gloves and the blouses with the big lacy sleeves, and I wondered just what I would buy with my first paycheck from the newspaper. And then I was still thinking about it late that night, long after I should have been in bed. And I woke the next morning bright and early, and I still had time to do some more window shopping before I headed to the newspaper office. Several of the dress shops in Atlanta were reported to carry reproductions of the latest French fashions, and I wanted to see them all. But still, when 10 o'clock came, I was standing right in front of the Atlanta Georgian newspaper office. I thought that my appointment was with Mr. Howard, but God had other plans for me that day.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was Mr. Howard's office. They all look alike. You're Mrs. Whiting. Can you direct me to Mr. Howard's office?
This is Mr. Howard's office. I'm filling in for him today. He's homesick with the flu. How may I help you?
Well, I've come about the position as a sketch artist. I left my portfolio with Mr. Howard yesterday, and he said to come back today and he'd tell me whether or not I have the job.
You are at least the fifth person that's come in so far this morning. Someone else, he wanted the job too, and Mr. Howard, oh my goodness. Well, he gave that job to somebody else. I just guess it just wasn't your lucky day.
But I was so sure. May I have my sketches back, please?
Oh, I can't find a thing here. Someone else wanted his drawings back this morning, and I couldn't find them either. Like, tell you what, come back in 2 or 3 days, and Mr. Howard will return
confused. I thought you got the job.
Oh, I did.
But you just said that someone else got the job.
Well, apparently it isn't only newspaper artists that jump to conclusions, is it? I did get the job. I just didn't know it yet. When I left my interview with Mrs. Whiting, I was more dejected and miserable than I had ever been. So when I got back to the home where I was staying, I ran up to my room, I slammed the door behind me, and threw myself on the bed.
But you don't like it when we do that.
That's right. Crying by itself doesn't accomplish much, but crying and praying accomplishes a great deal. I cried until my eyes hurt, and until I had drenched 3 handkerchiefs. And then, exhausted, I reminded God of my prayer from a few days earlier, and I fell fast asleep. And when I awoke the next morning, I knew exactly what I had to do. I had to go back to the newspaper office and get my sketches back. And I had to face Mr. Howard with my head held high. So on my way back to the newspaper office, I remembered the words that Mattie Perry told me at the train station.
Sometimes thinking isn't the right thing to do. Sometimes doing is the right thing to do. There is no end to what you can do when you follow God's call and trust Him to take care of the rest.
Excuse me, Mr. Howard.
You dare come back now? After all the trouble you caused, why didn't you come back when I told you to?
Well,
I wanted you for the job. I held it for you as long as I could, but I had no way to contact you. I had to hire someone else.
But I did come back. I came back while you were sick, and Mrs. Whiting told me that you had hired someone else for the
That
job.
was you? Of all the bumbling, idiotic. I thought I made myself clear to Whiting that if you came back, the job was yours. I can't imagine how she mixed that up. Look here. I even put your sketchbook in the top drawer with a letter of welcome attached. I guess this just isn't your lucky day. I am so sorry. Sorry for you, and even more sorry for me.
I appreciate what you have done for me, Mr. Howard. But, Mr. Howard, you are wrong. This is very much indeed my lucky day, and please don't feel sorry for me. I believe that I've just found what I've been looking for a very long time, and I don't mean my sketches. There's a spinster lady in North Carolina who is probably wondering why I haven't yet answered God's call.
So is that when you became Mama Lillian?
No, I was much too young. And at first, I didn't even tell my family where I was, because I knew that they would not agree with the plan, and they would probably try to talk me out of it. But still, deep inside, I knew I was setting out to find my destiny, and I knew I had found the something that was always just out of my reach.
Is that where you learned to be a mama?
That's where I started to learn to be a mama. God had a lot to teach me, and some lessons take a very long time to learn. For the next 5 years, I looked after 100 children. Life was a whirl of mending and cooking and changing diapers and holding crying babies. I went to bed bone tired, and I woke up at the crack of dawn to prepare breakfast. And oh, how I learned to pray. Once, when my shoes wore out and I had no money, I asked God to send an extra pair of shoes to the orphanage. And God answered my prayer. He sent me exactly what I prayed for, a pair of shoes. Men's shoes. I learned to be much more specific in my prayers after that. Oh, I have such wonderful memories of those 5 years.
What was the best thing that happened to you at the orphanage?
The best thing that happened to me wasn't a thing at all. It was a person.
Is that the happily ever after part?
Well, why don't you let me tell you the story, and you tell me if it's the happily ever after part. Well, after I'd worked at the orphanage for several years, I moved far away, or at least I thought it was far away, to attend a Bible college for a year. There was always so much more that I wanted to learn. After I'd been at the Bible school for a year, I took a job working in a church. But I was still restless. I still felt that there was something else I was supposed to be doing, or somewhere else I was supposed to go. Well, Miss Maddie's brother and his wife were traveling preachers, so I traveled with them for several months, looking for that one special place where I was to serve God. I was very happy, but I still felt like there was just something missing from my life. Something else that was just out of my reach.
Was it another school?
Or another orphanage?
Was it a man?
Did you fall in love?
Yes, children, it was a man, and I fell very much in love.
Is that when you became Mama Lillian?
Not yet, Edward. God wasn't ready. Or maybe I should say that I wasn't ready. But like so many young people today, I thought I was ready. Just before I went back to work with Miss Maddie, I met a very special young man. He was the most special person I have ever known.
So, Lily, what did you think of my sermon?
It was scriptural.
Scriptural? Well, of course it was scriptural, but how was I? I mean, how is that? Why, Lily, you're blushing even more than I am.
Well, Tom, I just never heard a sermon with such emotion or
what?
Oh, Tom, you preached out of the Song of Solomon, and I'd never heard a sermon out of the Song of Solomon before. Tom, why do you preach with such passion? I mean, I've never heard anyone preach like you do. You preach like you want to change the whole world.
Our world is changing, Lily. Whether we want it to or not, whether we're ready for it or not. It's as if this new world has caught us all by surprise. We don't know what to make of it. But it hasn't caught God by surprise. And somehow, with all the changes going on in the world today, people think God is too old-fashioned, that he can't keep up with all the modern thinking and the modern machines. There's no longer room for him in our lives. We're too busy seeking our own dreams to see the dreams he has for us, for each of us. Yes, Lily, the world is changing, and maybe it's changing too fast. I don't know. But I do know that God has called me, Lily. And he has called me to tell his people not to forget him. Yes, the world is changing, and I want to be a part of it. Or at least I want to be part of God's part of it. But just think, Lily. Man has now reached both the North and South Poles. Someday that contraption of the Wright brothers may fly clear across state. And I bet in another 10 years, there will be a Ford horseless carriage in every state in the Union. Why, did you know that even now, women can vote in Wyoming?
Really?
What's next, Lily? Yes, the world is changing, and maybe it is changing too fast. I don't know. I told you that men today are too busy looking for their own dreams to see the dreams God has for them, and maybe I'm just as guilty as the next guy. I want to follow my own dream, Lily, and my dream is to tell people all across America to come back to God's dreams for us. America is getting so big and important in her own eyes that I fear for her. God has called me, Lily. He has called me to warn America, to remind her of where she has come from, and where if she continues to ignore God, she is headed. And, I am so sorry, Lily. I really didn't mean to preach.
Tom, don't you ever apologize for doing what God has called you to do. He has given you a great mission, and I can see that.
Can you? I mean, do you really think so?
Yes, Tom, I've thought so since the first time that I heard you preach.
Really? Why didn't you say anything to me before? I mean, well, I thought that you thought that I thought that I think.
Tom, a lady doesn't just go up to a man and tell him what she thinks, even if it is 1910.
But what if he asked her? I mean, I suppose it would be all right then, wouldn't it?
I suppose.
Well?
Well, what?
Lillian Trasher, sometimes you are as stubborn as a... Why, as
a man?
Yes. Lily, you said that you could see that God has called me, and I have watched how you, I have noticed how God has given you a sensitive and caring heart. And if you think that, well, we're both older, well, I'm older than you, of course, but it just makes sense after working together all the time as we have.
Yes.
I mean, the two of us working together should be able to do twice the work of one man.
Yes, Tom.
I mean, person. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, what did you say?
Yes, Tom, I will marry you.
You will?
If you ever get around to a proper proposal.
Lily, Miss Lillian Trasher, will you do me the honor of becoming Mrs. Reverend Thomas Allen Jordan?
Someday, Reverend Thomas Allen Jordan, when I'm surrounded by a house full of children, I will tell them all of this. The happiest day of my life.
I come to you from the great heathen land of India. God has called me, as he called William Carey before me, and as he's calling many of you here today. You are uncomfortable, standing in a crowded hot room. Just think how crowded and hot hell is. Think of the millions of souls that are going into that eternal, godless hell because no one was there to tell them of God's great love. William Carey was only one man, yet William Carey expected great things from God, and William Carey attempted great things for God. Because that one man was willing to forsake all he had for the sake of the gospel, for the sake of the people of India. He saw his precious word of God translated into 39 languages. He opened more than 100 schools among the Indian people. He was used by God to abolish the most abominable heathen practices. Yes, William Carey was only one man, but what that one man could do when he submitted all he had into the hands and will of Almighty God. Tomorrow, I leave you to go back to India, to pick up where William Carey left off. It is not the cause of William Carey that must go on. It is not my cause that must go on. It is God and his cause that must go on. Tomorrow, I return to India to the work that God has called me to. But where are you going tomorrow? What are you doing? And where will you be with the work that God has called you to? Will you be forever content to sit in your comfortable pews and listen to your comfortable sermons? Or will you dare to say, Lord, here am I, send me? Who will be in hell tomorrow because you did not speak to them today?
No, Miss Maddie, do not comfort me, for I cannot be comforted. She's right. I cannot. I will not stay here while thousands of children are dying all across the ocean with no chance to hear the love of Jesus. But Miss Maddie, I love you as though you were my own mother, and I love all of our orphans as though they were my own children. But you are here. You can tell them of God's love, and there are so many churches everywhere. God has given me a great love for these, the least of these, but that is not enough. There are others here who could tell these precious children of God's great love. But now I must go where there are no churches, where the name of Jesus is foreign, and I must show his love to those standing on the brink of hell. I must go, Miss Maddie. I must go now.
All right, Lily, what's going on?
Well,
Lily? You're the one who wanted to talk. Now, I know you, and you are only this quiet when you have something to say.
Tom, you're right. We do need to talk.
You sound serious. Has Miss Maddie made more changes to our wedding plans? With 100 children in the house, you'd think she could find something else to occupy her time with.
It isn't Miss Maddie, it's something else.
What then? Do you need more money? I know you were down to your last $5. Is there something I can get for you? Is it something I have done?
No, Tom. This isn't about money, and there isn't anything that you can do for me. This isn't about you.
What then?
Please, Tom, you're making me more nervous than I already am.
I don't understand, Lily. I love you.
Tom, this is difficult enough. I love you too, but
there
I
is
think
no
that...
but. If there's a problem, we can work
No,
it out.
Tom, we can't. Just listen to me, please. I love you, and And until yesterday, I never wanted anything more in my life than to marry you and to work side by side with you in the ministry.
Yesterday?
Last night, Miss Maddie and I went to hear a missionary from India. And as she spoke, I realized that as much as I love you, I love God more.
That is as it should be.
You don't understand. Because I love God more than anything, even more than I love you, well, I must do as He has called me to do.
You are. That's why you're here with me now. That's why we're getting married in 10 days. Lily.
No, Tom. We are not getting married in 10 days.
Then when? Is there something you must do first?
It isn't what I must do first. It is what I must do instead. I love you, Tom Jordan. More than I have ever or could ever love anyone else. But I cannot marry you. God has called me to Africa. I didn't know where He wanted me to go until the words came out of my mouth, but now I know I must go to Africa, and I must go now.
Then I will go with you. This doesn't have to change anything.
But everything has changed. Everything has changed because I have changed. Oh, Tom, you can no more go with me to Africa than I can stay here with you. Let's sit, all right? I cannot stop you from following the dream that God has placed in your heart any more than you could stop me from the dream that He has placed in mine. Tom, God has called you toward America, and He's called me toward Africa. Africa.
Now who's preaching? I will wait for you, Lily. How long? A year? 2 years?
Could you warn America in just 2 years and then come to Africa? No, Tom. This is goodbye. But someday, Reverend Thomas Jordan, when you are surrounded by a house full of children, please tell them of me. And tell them of God's love.
That's when you became Mama Lillian.
No, but that time no longer seemed very far away. Before I could go to Africa, I needed more missionary training. But I only had $5, and I needed $18 to purchase a train ticket to a conference in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which was over 600 miles away. So I prayed and I saved every penny I could save.
Did you ever get to Pittsburgh?
Yes, but not right away. God had a few more lessons for me to learn first, and those lessons were more important than what I would learn at the conference.
But, Mama Lillian, you're a teacher. Why would you have to learn lessons?
God always has more lessons for us to learn. Within a short time and with the help of some friends, I had the money that I needed to buy my train ticket to Pittsburgh. But then something awful happened. I lost the money.
You lost it?
When I had the $18, I put it in Miss Maddie's desk to keep it safe. But Miss Maddie's sister thought that it was the grocery money, so she spent it. And when we realized what had happened, there was not enough money left in the house for me to buy my ticket.
What happened then, Mama Lillian?
Well, when my friends heard what had happened, they gave me all the money that they had. But it was only $10, and $10 was only enough to get me to Washington, D.C. Now, Miss Maddie had a friend in Washington, D.C., who she was sure that I could stay with while I waited for the orphanage to send me the rest of the money to get to Pittsburgh. Our plans, however, are not always God's plans.
I'm sorry, Miss Trasher, but if I would have known, I would have been able to provide you with a room. As it is with Miss Rast, Mrs. Brelsford, and the Reverend, I simply have no extra rooms available.
There is no need to apologize, Miss Oliver. I understand. But if you could please direct me to another place that I may stay for a few days, I would be very grateful. I'm awfully tired after the long train ride, and well, a hot bath and a soft bed would be very appealing.
Please, Miss Trasher, come in. At least let me fix you a meal and let you rest for a few minutes. I'm sure we can find you a comfortable room in town.
Thank you.
Miss Trasher, I'm Reverend Brailsford. This is my wife, Marie.
Hi.
And Miss Rast, one of our workers.
I'm very pleased to meet all of you. Excuse me, Reverend, but what do you mean by one of your workers?
We're missionaries, Miss Trasher.
Missionaries? How exciting.
It's not always as exciting as it may seem. We're staying here on our way to a missionary conference in Pittsburgh.
Oh, so am I. I mean, I'm staying here in Washington, D.C. while on my way to Pittsburgh. Where are you serving as missionaries?
We've been in Africa for several years now.
Oh my, you are really missionaries to Africa?
Actually, Miss Trasher, we're in Egypt, on the northern edge of the African continent.
My, indeed. Reverend Brailsford, that is where God has called me also. Well, to Africa, I mean.
Please, Miss Trasher, won't you sit with us for a while? We must each have stories for the other to hear.
Yes, Miss Trasher, please sit down.
Lillian, please.
Well, Lillian then. Tell us, Lillian, to what part of Africa have you been called?
Well, I don't know.
Well, surely your mission board has some region in mind.
Not really.
How very odd, don't you think?
Well, I'm not being sent out by a board. I'm not even an official member of a church.
Oh my.
Indeed.
Well, I have been attending a small church back in Asheville, and of course they will be praying for me, but they cannot send me out. I mean, they have no money.
I see.
Your family then. I assume they're financing this venture of yours.
No, sir. They wish that I wouldn't go at all.
My dear child, do you mean to say that you are off to Africa with no support, no idea of where you are going, and with only the money to get there?
No, ma'am. I don't even have the money to get there.
Lillian, dear, just how much money do you have?
$1.
No. You, young lady, are on a fool's errand. There is no place for a girl like you in Africa. You don't know the language, you have no support, and you have no way of getting any. No, you're not to be allowed to go to Africa. You are to go straight home to your family and tell them that you're sorry for ever worrying them with all this nonsense.
Now, George, I will agree with you that Lillian does seem to be on a fool's errand, but who are you to say whether or not she has heard God's call to go to Africa? I don't recall being in the room when God appointed you as his spokesman. Oh, Georgie, don't you remember when we first felt God's call to Africa and what our friends and family told us then? Where would we be today if we'd listened to them instead of to God? Now then, she may not have any money, but she sure has courage. And isn't that needed even more than money in Africa?
I'm sorry, Miss Trasher. Would you please forgive me? I seem to have been a bit hasty just now. Can you forgive me for doubting your call?
I understand. I must seem so presumptuous.
Well, it just was so shocking to think that a young girl such as yourself would dare to venture out to the other side of the world without a family and no money and no preset arrangements. Now, we're used to doing things in an orderly and a systematic fashion around here, and well, at first your idea just seemed so, well, to use your word, presumptuous to us.
However,
I must admit that God does work in mysterious ways, and we can see that you have faith, even if you have no money.
I do understand how foolish all of this must sound. Sometimes I wonder what I am doing, but I know that God has called me to be a missionary, and he will open the way for me.
Lillian, how would you like to work with us?
I think that's a wonderful idea. Don't you think so, Georgie? George?
Yes, that's a wonderful idea, Marie. We run a mission house in Egypt, and I'm not in a position to offer you money of any kind, but when you make your way to Africa, we could provide you with meals and lodging if you could work with us.
Reverend Brailsford, as you know, I don't have the money to get to Pittsburgh. I don't even have the money to get to Pittsburgh, but since God wants me there, he'll get me there. And I believe that he's looking after that need even now.
So you finally came to Egypt?
I was now ready to go to Egypt, but God still had a few more lessons for me to learn.
Mama Lillian, you sure were a slow learner.
Yes, Moisha, I was slow, but I was learning, and God was very patient with me. That night, Miss Rast went to stay with a friend in the city, so that I was able to stay in Miss Oliver's home with Reverend and Mrs. Brailsford. The very next Monday, I received the rest of the money that I needed for my train ticket to Pittsburgh from Miss Mattie. So after I went to the missionary conference, Reverend Brailsford and I went to the train station, where I would buy a ticket for the next part of my journey, and Reverend Brailsford would travel south on a mission tour before heading back to Egypt. But when Reverend Brailsford got to the ticket counter, he discovered he didn't have enough money for his ticket. So God used me to purchase his ticket for him. I think that God wanted to teach both of us a lesson that day. So after that, I traveled and spoke for several months wherever God would open a door for me to speak, because I knew that I would need $100 to purchase a ticket on board a big ship called the SS Berlin. See that? That was the ship that would take me to Egypt. So I wrote to my family and I told them of my plans to leave for Egypt on October the 8th. Only my sister, my wonderful sister Jenny.
Oh, Auntie Jenny?
Yes, your Auntie Jenny. She answered me with the most wonderful news. Although she lived way out in California, she was afraid that I would become homesick while I was so far away. So she decided she would come to Egypt with me. Only she told me that she'd have to go home as soon as I was settled. And then it looked like I might never leave America. The day before Jenny was to meet me, I still owed $60 to the travel agency, and I had no way to get the money. In fact, I was so sick, I could barely get up to answer a knock at the door.
Who is it?
My name is unimportant. May I come in?
Certainly.
Are you Lillian Trasher?
Yes, can I help you
How
with
much
something?
money will it cost you to get to Egypt?
I'm sorry, but I don't understand.
How much money will it cost you to get to Egypt?
$100, but
And
why
how much money do you still need for your ticket?
Excuse me, ma'am, but who
How
are
much
you?
money do you still need for your ticket?
$60.
Take this with God's blessings. I must go.
Let me guess.
I know, $60.
So now you learned all your lessons and you came to Egypt and became our Mama Lillian?
God had one more lesson for me to learn. Perhaps the sweetest and most important lesson of all. 2 days later, my sister Jenny and I stood on shore in front of the ship that would take me to my new home. We were surrounded by many friends who were wishing us well and praying for us. And finally, just as we were boarding, one of my friends yelled out for me to open my Bible and read the very first verse that I saw. It was then that I noticed these precious words for the very first time.
I have seen the affliction of my people which is in Egypt, and I have heard their groanings, and am come down to deliver them. And now come, I will send thee to Egypt.
Mama Lillian, I know that girl. She is from my village. Her name is Marjan.
Father, protect Marjan. Send the soldiers away.
Look, the city is burning. We must flee quickly. What do we do with her? Leave her. She's as good as dead anyway.
Come, Edward.
You won't, Lillian. When my people go, neither mother.
Yes, child. I know that you're hurt, but we will take care of you. Come to the kiln with us. Help me, Edward. Help me get her up. You'll be safe in there with us. Now watch your head. Why did you risk coming here? Did you not know about the soldiers?
Yes, I knew about these soldiers. But my family told me to run here. They said your God was stronger than the God of the soldiers, and he would protect me.
You are safe now, Marjan. We will take care of you, and when this is all over, we will take you back to your home.
I have no home. I watched it burn as I ran.
Then you are now welcome as one of us.
Children, we do not know if the soldiers will return. And although I believe with all my heart that God will protect us, it is possible that we will only live for a few more minutes. So if you are not ready to die, you had better pray now. But do so quietly because we don't want anyone to know that we're here.
Mama Lillian, I'm scared.
I'm scared too, but God is with us.
Mama Lillian, I didn't think you were ever afraid.
Many times I am afraid, but when I am, I trust God to take care of me, and He always does, just like He's doing right now.
It doesn't feel like He is taking care of us. I'm trying to trust Him, but I'm still afraid.
So am I, Edward. But I'm learning to trust Him more and more every day, even when I can't see clearly or I can't understand what He's doing. It wasn't always that easy to trust in the Lord, especially when I first came to Egypt, because I was not familiar with His ways in this land yet.
Were the soldiers so mean then?
It wasn't the soldiers that were so much of a problem. My biggest fear was my own lack of understanding. After I'd been in Egypt for only 3 weeks, I first faced those fears. Late one night, as Jenny and I were sitting around the table with Reverend and Mrs. Brailsford and Miss Rast, there was a loud knock at the door of the mission house. Our visitor, a young Egyptian man, wouldn't tell us what was wrong. He only told us that we were to follow him and that a missionary was needed very badly. So Miss Rast and I ran with him to a small bare hut. And when my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I was horrified when I realized where God had brought me.
Arshuki! What is she saying? Arshuki, talking. She's dead. What was she saying before she died?
She wanted you to take her baby. Poor thing must have known she was dying. If only she would have come to us sooner. Maybe we could have saved her. What are you doing?
I'm taking this baby. It was her mother's dying wish.
You cannot take this baby. You don't understand. She's an Egyptian.
That should not matter to you, and it certainly does not matter to God.
It does matter to the Egyptians. Besides, this baby could not possibly live. The old woman will know what to do with her. Lillian, I know this may not seem the best way, but it is the only way. You must remember, you are in Egypt now.
But this woman is almost dead herself. She cannot possibly care for the baby.
There is no other way.
We'll take her to the mission house.
Our mission house is not an orphanage.
Well, there is your answer. Where is the nearest orphanage?
Oh, Lily, you are so naive. You keep forgetting you are in Egypt now. The Egyptians don't believe in the orphanages that you have in America.
But if this dear child stays here, what will happen to her? What chance does she have? Tell me.
It's only a girl anyway. What does it matter if it dies?
She will go to the orphanage.
But there is no orphanage.
Well, there is now.
Did you bring the baby here?
Is she one of us?
I didn't know what else to do. So I brought the little girl. I named her Farida. I brought her back to the mission house. I was sure that Reverend Brailsford would understand the situation, but since everyone was certain that the baby would not live, they left me alone for 2 weeks to take care of her. And after 2 weeks, she was still alive. So Reverend Brailsford felt the need to discuss the situation of the child. After all, Miss Rast was right. The mission house was not an orphanage. Early one morning, Reverend Brailsford called me into his office.
Reverend?
Oh, please. Well, then be seated. I know that since you've only been in Egypt for a few weeks now, you're not yet aware of our ways, but if we're to minister to these people, we must adapt to their culture. We must learn to think as they think.
Well, I agree that we must learn to adapt. But if you are saying that we must be exactly like these people, well, then why are we here? If there's no difference between us and them, then should we not have stayed in America where it was comfortable?
No, perhaps adapt is not the best word choice. Maybe compromise.
Compromise?
Lillian, you're making this far more difficult than it needs to be. The other missionaries, well, we've had a meeting. We all agree that the mission house is no place for a sick baby. She cries all night and keeps us all awake, and then we don't have the energy to go on with our regular missionary duties during the day. I'm sorry, but you'll have to take her back.
Back? Back where? She has no place to go. Her mother is dead, and I don't know who the old woman and the young man were. I can't take her back.
Well, you'll take her back at once. She can't spend another night in the mission house.
Then neither will I. Reverend Brailsford, I cannot and I will not take her back. But if she must leave, then I will go with her.
A lone American woman living in an Arab world? You won't live long enough to starve to death, Lillian.
I will not be alone. I came here with God, and if necessary, I will leave here with God.
If you leave this mission house with that baby, then you leave without my permission. Go and do what you will, but if things go wrong, I'm sorry. You won't be welcome to come back. And have you forgotten it's not just you and the baby? You foolishly brought your sister Jenny into this house, and if you go, I'm sorry, she goes. Do you want to be responsible for her life also?
I hadn't thought
Reverend
of that.
Brailsford, do you remember Ruth and Naomi from the Bible?
I do.
Well, I guess I'm the Ruth in that story, because wherever my sister Lillian goes, I go. Where she stays, I stay.
Oh, Jenny, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen.
Don't cry. You'll make me cry. I remember you told someone once never to apologize for what God has called them to do. This is what God has called you to do.
If you only knew what you mean to me. No, sister. Between the two of us, I think we have $12.50. And I believe that is exactly how much money we need to open an orphanage.
And that was exactly how much money that we needed. My sister Jenny and I moved into a small home with little Farida. At first, everyone was very suspicious of us. Some people thought that we wanted to sell Egyptian children as slaves, and others started a rumor that we wanted to sell Egyptian babies to rich Americans. Well, after a few weeks, most of the rumors died down. In fact, by the end of the first month, we were mostly just ignored. And that was when we had our first real test of faith.
Do you remember, Lil, that the rent is due tomorrow? No one except the Brailsfords even know where we are. And I doubt they're going to be paying our rent.
Jenny, God hasn't forgotten us. He knows our address.
If I had your abandon, Lil, your complete abandon, it would be different. If I had your faith, but I must face realities. Realities such as we have no food for tomorrow, the rent is due tomorrow, and no one knows or cares where we are. I have faith in God too, but your kind of faith is beyond me.
Jenny, I know that it's hard to have this kind of faith if you're not called to it as I have been, but I promise you that I'll take full responsibility of our future if you'll just love me and the children. Jenny, you are so good and so good for me. I know that you didn't come to Egypt to run an orphanage, but it appears that I did, even if we do have only one child.
All right. It's your orphanage and your dream. I'll just follow you.
Ladies. The door was open. I have a message for Miss Lillian.
I am Miss Lillian.
The message is from Miss Ross. She invites you and Miss Jenny to her home next week for a meal.
Oh, please tell her thank you. We accept her kind offer. I told you. Is there something else that I can help you with?
Are you the lady looking for children without a home?
I am.
How are you going to get enough money to take care of them all?
Young man, I don't even know how God is going to provide the next meal for our one little orphan. But I do know that He will provide it.
Well, here, maybe this will help.
Jenny, that Muslim boy just gave me, a Christian woman, 35 cents. As the Bible says, despise not the day of small beginnings. Oh, Lil, God really does know our address.
Our home isn't strong now, is it, Mama?
No, Edward. God has brought us very far since those days of small beginnings.
And He still knows our address.
Yes, indeed He does. And it wasn't long before many others knew our address as well. Within days, we had 3 more precious children. With 4 children, I began to wonder if I should even consider taking in any more. Then one day, that decision was almost taken away from me forever.
Well, the doctor's finished with his examinations of all the children, but I'm afraid that he... Lillian, what's wrong? You look awful.
I'm just tired, that's all. With 4 children now, it's hard to keep up.
Oh, this is more than just tired.
Jenny, I am not one of the children, and you don't need to fuss over me. I'm sorry, Jenny. I'm so tired, and I don't know why. What did the doctor say was wrong with the children?
Lil, I don't know what to do. The doctor said that Habib has brought the...
Habib was sick when he came here. Did he bring something contagious? Do we need to isolate the other children?
It's too late to isolate the children. Habib has brought the bubonic plague.
What if my children has the bubonic plague?
Probably all of them.
Father, what do I do now? He must be so terribly frightened. I have to go to him.
No,
Habib,
let the doctor.
Oh, doctor! Hurry! It's my sister! Oh, Lil, don't you leave me. I can't do this without you. Doctor! I need you. The children need you, Lillian. Doctor! Hurry!
Lillian!
Help her!
Lillian! Lillian, can you hear me?
Oh, thank God. Doctor, take care of Habib. We're all he has now.
Do not worry about Habib. We are doing everything we can for him and the others.
Doctor, does Lillian have the plague?
Jenny, your sister is very ill. I cannot say at this point whether or not she has the plague, but I can say that her heart has been overworked and she must not continue her work.
But doctor, I cannot leave the children.
Lillian, you do not understand. I do not mean to be so blunt, but if you do not rest for a while now, you will rest permanently in the cemetery.
The hardest thing I have ever done, even harder than leaving my beloved Tom, was when I left Egypt behind me a few days later. I didn't want to admit it to myself or to anyone else, but we all knew that the doctor was right. So I left Egypt, and I left all of my babies behind me, not knowing if I would ever return. But I learned one of my most important lessons, that I am not God, and I cannot do everything. So I went away for several weeks and rested my heart and my spirit, and I knew that when I returned, many things would have to be done differently. I knew that because Jenny and I could not do everything ourselves, that we were going to have to ask others for help. So over the next several years, I asked many people, farmers and merchants, rich and poor, men and women, to help us. In fact, I rode all over Egypt on a donkey, asking people to help us.
You rode on a donkey?
Yes, I did. And as more and more people helped us, the orphanage grew larger and larger. One day I realized that we had 50 children, and then 100, and then several hundred, and then 500. Many times on my travels, I would be too far away to return home at night. And so I would have to stay in a police station because it was the only available place for me to sleep. Twice on my travels, I nearly drowned trying to cross the Nile River. And there were many times when we did not know where our next meal would come from, but God always provided. And there were some times when he used our little home to meet the needs of others. Once there was a very poor sick woman who came to us, begging us for help. She was blind and expecting her 4th child any day. And her poor husband had been out of work for 8 months. Her children were starving, and she begged us for help. Our own pantries were nearly empty, but still I could not turn the poor woman away.
So what did you do?
Well, I gave her my last $5 and some bread and soap, rice and sugar. And I told our cook to give her the last bit of meat that we had, along with some potatoes and tomatoes. I wanted to do more, but I knew that we would have to ration our meals as it was. So a few hours later, I went to see Mr. Badir in the marketplace to see if he had some extra rice he could give us.
Oh, Miss Trasher, it is so good to see you today.
Mr. Badir, I know that this isn't my usual day to come to the market, but, well, I was hoping that you might have a little extra rice that you could spare us.
Oh, did you not get the note that I sent you?
What note was that, Mr. Badir?
Oh, Miss Trasher, I know how you are always helping my people, and I wanted to repay you a little for your great kindnesses. I asked a few of my friends if they would donate to your orphanage. I know it isn't much, but our people are poor. We did all that we could. Please stay here, and I will get the supplies from the storeroom. As I said, I know it isn't much, but we hope it will help. We have collected 55 American dollars, a large bag of our best rice. We have 100 pounds of soap. We have many loaves of bread, and we have several large boxes of sugar. And I had no time to count all the pounds of potatoes and tomatoes. And if you can carry all those supplies, I will have my son come up later and bring all the fresh meat.
Oh, thank you.
Always remember, children, that when we put our trust in God, he will meet our needs and watch out for us.
God is always watching out for us, as you say. Why are these soldiers here now?
I don't know, Marjan, but what I do know is that someday, when you tell your children about what is happening here today, that you will be able to tell them of God's goodness.
This isn't the kind of story that I want to remember.
Neither do I. I like your other stories better, Mama Lillian. The ones with your drawings.
Well, okay. Let's see what we can find here. What story would you like to hear, children?
Tell us about the holes in the desert. That's my favorite.
All right. Well, huddle close now. Huddle close. Well, once, many, many years ago, there was a little boy who had to cross a vast desert. Now, there were no drinking holes in this desert, so when he was thirsty, he had to dig a hole for himself with his bare hands. Now, it wasn't long before his hands were cut and bloody, but he went on. Finally, when he got to the other side of the desert, he was completely worn out. But after several months, he watched as another boy stepped out into the same desert. Now, the second boy took the same route as the first boy. But when he got to the other side of the desert, he was still fresh and happy, skipping along with a huge bunch of flowers in his arms. Now, Malik, you remember. What did the first boy ask when he got through?
How did you cross this desert and still look so fresh and clean? And where did you get those flowers? I didn't see any flowers when I crossed the desert.
Very good. Now, does anyone remember what the second boy answered?
I do. I don't know how you could have missed the flowers. They surround all the beautiful wells of water all along the way.
That's right. And then the first boy looked down at his own scarred hands and he smiled. because he knew that his own suffering had made the desert an easier place to cross for those who followed him.
I've never heard such a story. Please tell another. It makes me forget about the soldiers.
Well, what story would you like to
I hear her.
It's all right, children. It's all right. We need you.
You there! Come on now, and bring your children with you. Come on!
Jesus loves me.
Down here. I found the woman and the children.
Stay close to me.
Where is your God now? I am the one holding the gun. I know your God cannot hide you for long. But tell me this, Nile Mother. Can your God save you now?
I do not know if her God will kill you. But I do know if you touch her or one of these little ones, I will kill you with my bare hands.
You little man? Are you as foolish as you are small? We hold the guns.
Besides, she's English. She deserves to die for that fact alone.
She's American and has done us no harm. She has the face of a foreigner, but the heart of an Egyptian. I've been her neighbors for years, and I can tell you that she's done nothing but bless our land. Men, look at these children. They are her own children. They are Egyptians, yet she cares for them when we do not. Do you not understand that this place is the last oasis for these little ones? Have you no shame? I tell you, she's done nothing but bless our people and our children. Do what you must, but do it somewhere else.
She's as good as dead. If you don't move out of the way, it'd be my greatest joy to make your wife a widow.
Well, Nile, Mother, you have melted my heart. Come, we've got more important duties to perform. Besides, she's not worth the cost of a bullet. Come.
Thank you, Sabir. God has used you to spare our lives.
Please, Nile Mother, I wish not to be thanked. I did not just happen to be here tonight as the soldiers approached. I bring you a message from the general. He has ordered all foreigners, unless government employees, to leave tomorrow. There is a steamer waiting to take you to Cairo. You will be safe there.
Safe in Cairo? But you have seen for yourself I am safe here. I cannot leave my children.
I am sorry, Nile Mother. I do know of the good work that you're doing here, but I am not the one making you leave. We will care for the children very carefully while you are gone, but you will be back very soon. You must go now. The ship is leaving tonight.
Where will I go? These are my children, and this is my home.
Maybe you need to go back to America. Maybe there are friends there that has missed you. Maybe there is a special one that you have missed.
Tom.
I did not know if you would see me, especially now that you are famous.
Tom. I wasn't sure if I would see you.
Oh.
You look well.
Thank you. So do you. Are you sorry that you never married, I mean?
You missed the opportunity to have all of my children? Never. What about you? Are you sorry that we never married?
Well, sometimes I think about what it would have been like if we had married. Well, each other, I mean. But I am happily married, and I have my own children. Not nearly as many as you do. But it is good to know that I am spending my life doing what God has called me to do. Calling America back to God. Remember how concerned I was about that contraption of the Wright brothers flying across the state? How was I to know that so soon the airplane would be used to fight in a world war? Or that women would now be allowed to vote anywhere in the United States? Yes, Lily, America is changing indeed. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, but always changing. And as long as she keeps on changing, I will go on warning her. You're not here anymore, are you, Lily?
I was wondering. my babies have enough to eat tonight. Wondering if they'll remember me when I return.
Dear Lily, your heart really is in Egypt, isn't it?
Maybe God brought me home to make me realize that this is no longer my home.
You once told me that you could see that God had a great mission for me.
Yes.
And maybe that is true. But how much greater mission has God had for you, Lillian? I hear that they call you the Nile Mother. I know that God has called you to Egypt, just as he has called me to America. Lillian, Lily, would you do me the honor of not becoming Mrs. Reverend Thomas Allen Jordan?
It's almost time.
I know. It's always so hard for me to adjust when you leave. Wish you could just stay here forever. The children miss you so much when you leave, and I do too.
I miss this place when I'm gone. But we both know I can't stay here. Unlike you, Egypt is not my home.
How many trips have you made to Egypt over the years?
Oh my, I quit counting a long time ago. Remember the first trip we ever made to Egypt?
Of course.
I was only going to stay until you got settled in. That's been almost 40 years ago now.
Sometimes I still don't feel settled here.
When I came in just now, you were looking out the window. What were you watching?
The children. Always the children. You remember our first little Farida? If we had only known what would have happened when we took her from her mother's arms.
It wouldn't have mattered. If it hadn't been for Ida, there would have been another baby. It was your calling.
I suppose.
Does it ever hurt when you remember?
Sometimes. Like when I remember when Farida's father, the young man that took us to her dying mother, came several years later and took that sweet girl away from us. And how we heard that she died a little while later. Part of me died that day. When I remember the pain, I know why I will never turn a child away. It hurts to remember, but it hurts even more to think if she had never lived at all. Yes, it hurts. But mostly I have good memories. Like when I picture the boys making the straw bricks for their own dormitory. Or when I remember Lord Maclay, his daughter, Lady Inskip. Oh, they have blessed us so much over the years.
They have. But do you remember the first time they visited, how nervous you were?
Oh, I tried to forget that.
You were so nervous because you didn't know how to address him.
Oh.
And then he bowed to you so properly and said in his Scottish accent, "My dear Miss Trasher, you may address me any way you wish. Any titles I might have shrink to insignificance when compared to the nobility of your character and work."
Yes, it's mostly good memories, isn't it? Do you have any regrets ever?
Never. Even though my home's always been in America, there's still a part of me that feels Egyptian. Oh, these children have taught me so much.
Yes.
So much more than I could ever teach them. Lil, when I go back and the people ask me about the work here, what do you want me to tell them about the home?
God has always provided for his children.
Amen.
In spite of my efforts to help him.
Well, now you must be remembering your last trip on that old donkey.
Yes. That donkey and I traveled halfway across Egypt asking for help. I remember that day so clearly. I can even tell you how much money I needed. 75 pounds. I had been told that a wealthy merchant, Mr. Ali, would willingly give us whatever I needed. After all, that was such a small amount to him. So when I got to his home early that morning, his servants told me that he was eating breakfast and told me to wait in his entry hall. Jenny, that entry hall was wider than our kitchen. So I sat there and I waited all day, but he never came. It's when I realized that he had no intention of helping us, and he was probably just waiting for me to get tired and go home. All the way back, I cried and I prayed and I reminded God that I was far too old to be traipsing across Egypt on a donkey. And I promised God that day that if he would provide the money that we needed, then I would spend my time and energies just taking care of the children. I think that's what he wanted all along anyway. So, the children are right. I am a slow learner. But that night when I got home, there was an envelope waiting for me. Not with the 75 pounds that I thought I needed, but with 200 pounds. Praise glory. And that was the last time that I ever rode that donkey asking anyone for money.
So, when you look back, what's your most beloved memory?
Jenny, you know the answer to that. My most beloved memory is laced together with my most painful memory. When the government came in and took away all of our Muslim children, I never fully recovered from the loss. By the end of 1933, I was so sick that I could barely take care of myself, let alone all of the children.
I remember.
Then I came to the hardest decision of my life. I would send the children, all of the children, away. There were just so many needs, and I didn't have the strength to even trust God. And that night, when I gathered the children around me to tell them of my decision, it was hard to face them. One by one, they started crying as they began to understand what I was saying. And then they began to pray. And they prayed for me. Jenny, I was turning them away, and they were praying for me. And little Beta, do you remember her? Of course. She got down on her knees, and she prayed, "Oh Lord, please help Mama Lillian. If you let us stay, I promise I won't ever do anything bad again. At least I'll try not to." And then, one by one, as the others prayed, I felt my strength returning. And that is when I realized what prayer warriors little children could be. And that's when I began to share with them the needs of the home so that they could pray and see answers to their own prayers. And that is when I knew I would never send them away.
Oh, Lil, God has been so faithful.
Yes, he has.
And I know he will continue to be. It's so hard for me to go home now. But you have Philip and Hazel Crouch here to take my place.
Yes, I do.
Philip is a wonderful teacher.
Yes.
And Hazel, oh, she loves these little ones as much as you do.
Yes.
And there are others, you know, just waiting to come here and help.
Yes, I know, and I love them all. But they are not my sister.
Oh, I have to be going now. Lillian, don't look so sad.
I'm sorry.
You always make me cry.
I'm sorry.
I told you I'll be back here by Christmas. You know I can't stay away from the children for very long. These next 3 months are going to be filled with God's blessings. I just know it.
Father, since Jenny returned to America, but I miss her so much. She is such a practical help to me. Now, the doctor has told me that the cholera epidemic has reached the city. What am I to do? I know that this means that there will be more orphans for us to take in. And Lord, the doctor has ordered me not to take in any other children, but how can I refuse them? Father, in 40 years, I have never turned away a needy child. How can I start now? Now, Father, your word says that neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. And I take that word as a promise. Lord, I know that the cholera epidemic is all around us, but I am going to trust you to keep my children safe. Father, please protect us, for we have nowhere else to turn.
Hurry! The boys' dormitory is on fire!
Father, protect my babies.
Mama Lillian, it's all right. All the boys are safe. The fire subsided, and we have it under control.
How do you know that the boys are safe?
I counted them myself. They borrowed a water brigade from the pump, and they called the fire trucks. You would have been proud of the boys. None of them panicked, and they all helped, even the little ones. Now there's only a small fire. I don't think it'll even reach the kitchen before the fire trucks arrive.
Lord, do something. The kerosene tanks are in the kitchen.
Mama! The flames that had died down suddenly caught again. No, Mama! You don't understand. It's a miracle. Just as they reached the kitchen, they stopped for no reason. The boys wanted me to tell you that the fire has stopped and that they are all safe.
Praise the Lord. Now I must go see to those boys for myself, but first let us thank God for his protection. Father, I thank you for the wonderful gift that you have given these children, for you have now saved them twice. First when you saw fit to bring them here, and now with the fire. Oh Lord, you have been so good to us. But please excuse this hurried prayer, for I must go see for myself this great miracle that you have done.
Excuse me, Niall, Mother.
Oh, yes.
Please, I must speak with you. One of the girls have let me in.
How may I help you?
My name is Jameer, and my wife has died of the cholera. My wife has died and have left me to care for my two sons. Please help. I cannot feed them, and I have heard that you will take them in.
I would love to look after your children, but the doctor, he's ordered me not to take in any more children until this cholera epidemic is over. I am so sorry.
I understand, but we have walked for 4 days with nothing to eat. If we may please share a piece of bread before we begin our long walk back to the village.
Of course, of course. Mina, please take our friend and his sons to the kitchen and give them something to eat before they leave. What was I to do? The doctor ordered.
Who are you trying to convince? Me or you?
Jenny, oh Jenny, what would you have me do? Can't you see I had to turn them away? The risk of bringing the cholera into the home and the children. Oh my, what have I done? Lord, please forgive me. Raper! Stop that man! Lord, I don't know where I will put them, but when they are finished eating, I will find a bed for them somewhere.
Mama Lillian, one of Jameer's boys is very sick.
Little Abraham did indeed bring cholera into our home that day. I have been asked if I did wrong by allowing that little boy in. I ask you, could you have done otherwise? Jesus said that when ye have done it unto the least of these, ye have done it unto me. And 6 months later, when cholera was finally only a memory in Egypt, none of my other children had been infected. For the next several years, we built a hospital and a chapel, several new dormitories, and a barn for our 25 milk cows. I've been asked, what is the secret of my great success? It is simply this, that I have stayed with the work that God called me to do. What has happened to my children in the years since they left my home? There are too many stories to tell. I could tell you of William, the son of a blind man, who is now the principal of a school, or Philip, who is a professor in Alexandria, or Zachar, who graduated from Cairo University, Edward, that designs airplanes. Each of my children has their own story to tell. The past 40 years, I have tried to live in such a way as to pass on something tangible to a new generation. I live before these orphans each day in the way that I want them to live one day in their own homes in Egypt. I want them to remember, as Miss Maddie told me so long ago at the train station, there is no end to what you can do if you follow God's call and trust Him to take care of the rest. Have I succeeded? I don't know. What I do know is that the lessons of our home have not only been passed on to the next generation of our children, but also to the next generation of workers. One day, Hazel Crouch, one of our young teachers, came to me and told me that one of our little boys, Wedge, was very sick and needed special care. Hazel asked me for permission to bring Wedge into her own home to care for him, knowing it was against the rules to do so. Well, I reminded Hazel that with so many children in the home, we simply could not give special attention to just one child. But even as I reminded her, my own memories went back to the thoughts of a young girl who saw one baby in Egypt alone and dying. And I knew that Hazel must do as I had done so many years earlier, whether there were rules or no rules. The story of a little orphanage in Egypt will go on because the love will go on. These children are my life. All that I am and all that I have is invested in their lives. There is nothing that I would rather do in all the world than to take care of the babies of Egypt. And now I need your help to reach those who are still without hope and without Christ. Together, we can salvage the children of Egypt. God cares for those who call upon Him. And I know that you do care too. I know you do. God bless you, each one. One more thought before I leave. Brother Hogan, I must thank you for the excellent hotel room that you have provided for my stay here, but I cannot stay in that room. Brother Hogan, that room costs $9 a night. Just think what we could do with the orphanage with $9. I'm so sorry, but I cannot stay in a room that costs so much money while my precious babies need milk. And out of the kindness of their hearts, Philip and Hazel Crouch have offered for me to stay in their home while I am here, so I must accept their gracious offer. It has been nearly 50 years now since I first knelt and prayed by that old log, and the words are more sincere today than they were so long ago. Lord, if ever I can do anything for you, just let me know, and I will do it. Thank you for sharing this evening with us. It's been our greatest pleasure to perform this for you. We are just humbled and honored to portray the life of such an amazing woman. Amazing because she was ordinary, yet she put her faith in God in an amazing way and allowed Him to use her in ways that most of us can't even conceive of doing. So she's been a tremendous inspiration to me personally. I have learned so much from her during these several months that we have prepared for this show for you. We have prayed for each one of you. We've asked the Lord to change you by being here. We've really been believing that many of you are called to step out into missions, and that perhaps you've been ignoring the call that God has been whispering in your ear or tugging at your heart with. And we hope that maybe that this show has been used by Him to speak a little louder, and perhaps one of you will go out and do something amazing for the Lord to bring Him glory. Now I would like to proudly introduce to you the playwright and director of The Last Oasis, Dr. Joseph Ransom.
Thank you very much. We have a very special treat tonight, and if this person knew I was going to do this, he probably would not have come. But that sick and dying child that Hazel Crouch asked Lillian if she could take into her own home, knowing it was against the rules to do so. That sick, dying child grew up to become my professor almost 30 years ago, and was the inspiration behind my writing this story. Mr. Wedge Crouch, will you please come down here? Very small token of our appreciation, I want to present this to you. On one side is a miniature version of the poster for the show. On the other side is the dedication as it is written inside the script. The dedication reads, "To the memory of Miss Lillian Trasher, without whom there would be no last oasis in Egypt today. To the memory of Philip Crouch, who helped thousands of Egyptians to live and thousands of students to serve. To Hazel Crouch, who loved when love was the best medicine. And to Wedge Crouch, who, with the example and dedication of his father and the loving heart from two mothers, continues to share the miracle of Egypt and the grace of God."
accept that on behalf of Mama Lillian, the work that she has done, and the work that continues to go from the time that she began on into eternity. And on behalf of my parents, without whose love and dedication I certainly wouldn't be here. Thank you so very much.
Sit down, please. I will close with prayer, and the cast will come out, be right outside these doors, and would love to meet with you. If any of you have a prayer request, a burden on your heart, any member of our cast would love the opportunity of praying with you. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this awesome opportunity that we have of not just remembering a person, but remembering, Father, what you can do through a person totally committed to you. We thank you for that tonight, Father. We ask, Lord, that you will go with us in the days ahead. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. One of the difficulties that I had in writing this show was deciding what I could and what I could not put in the play. My biggest problem, of course, was the time factor of you only have about an hour and a half of playtime. So I knew that everything that I wanted to say about Lillian Trasher could not fit in the production time. So it follows our 4 brief scenes that just never quite made it on stage.
I am sorry. I am truly sorry, but 3 of your children have died tonight. We have done all that could be done for them, but it was not enough. I am truly sorry.
My babies! My babies are gone!
But Mama Lillian, you have hundreds more.
Yes, but I can't spare even one.
I appreciate the tour of your facility and your time answering all of my questions, but if I may, I do have one more question.
Well, certainly. I will answer any questions that you may have.
Well, I do appreciate the cleanliness and orderliness of your facility here, but tell me, what are the rules of your orphanage?
Rules? You don't have rules in your home.
But there must be rules.
Sorry. Oh, yes, I forgot. The children must march in line when they enter for meals. I'm sorry, but that is the only rule that I have.
Hashi, I see that you've been healing nicely. You're not even wearing a sling anymore.
I and my girls are healing nicely. I still can't believe my husband shot me simply because I bore him no sons. What should I do if he comes here looking for me now that he is out of jail?
If he comes here looking for you, I will chase him clear across the Nile. Please, Lord, surely if I do the work here, you can send the money that we need. Send us $200 today.
Why not ask abundantly? We need lentils and beans and clothes for the boys.
Then, Lord, please send us $300 today.
Mama Lillian, why not $500?
Okay, Lord. Whatever you think is right.
Excuse me, Naomi. When I brought the mail in a few minutes ago, your sister Jenny told me to bring this to you immediately.
Thank you so much. You were right. Praise you, Father. It's 1,000 American dollars. If he comes here looking for you, I will chase him clear across the Nile.
I just want to see your whole reaction.
I would like to introduce to you Mr. Wedge Crouch, who was my inspiration for writing this show. Wedge Crouch was born in Aswat, Egypt, and lived in Mama Lillian's orphanage before he was adopted by Hazel and Philip Crouch.
I think it was that call of God that she had on her life from that time as a very young girl, when she responded that anything she could do for him, she would do. And then as the opportunities progressed and were made available to her, then she saw little by little that ministry was opening up. And it was, I'm sure, very scary for her. It was a time period when you didn't get on a plane and fly over there in just a few hours. You traveled by boat. It took you weeks and weeks to be able to get there, and you went into areas that you had no idea what you were going to be dealing with. And so I'm sure that it was that commitment that she had and the love of children that she was developing that allowed her to be able to minister like she did. I think like many ministries, people don't realize what they're doing. They live one day at a time, and she took in one child at a time, and as that child and the numbers blossomed, then she realized what she was given the opportunity to be able to do, and little by little the work developed, grew, swelled, but I don't think she would have ever envisioned the thousands and thousands of children. They're getting ready to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the orphanage in February of 2011, and it will be, I'm sure, an amazing time to see just a small portion of the thousands of children that she has blessed and has provided for. I think it was probably something that you see when you see the movie The Nile Mother. And there's a scene in The Nile Mother in which she is sending one of her children out to go minister to the villages around the orphanage and other areas of Egypt. And I think that is probably what brought her the greatest happiness. The fact that she could now see her ministry being carried out in the children whose lives she saved and who she brought an opportunity to repay the ministry that she had. I think the greatest legacy of Mama Lillian is twofold. The practical side is, of course, the children that she helped, the lives that she saved, the blessing that she was to them. And then the second, I think, is the spiritual, and that is the way that she led so many people, so many children, and the way that she stayed true to the commitment that she had, and then developed in her children a sense of commitment and need to stay true to the opportunities that they were provided. I think she would want to pass on the same message that she had when she was asked to serve, and that was that if there's anything that you can do for the kingdom, then you should do it. And if any opportunity is provided for you, and don't put a limitation on God, because when she thought that one child would be all that she had, or two children, if she would have stopped there, then think of the thousands that would have been left out. But I think that's what she would want children to realize, was that, and the young people today to realize, is the way that if they will simply stay true to their convictions and stay true to their desires to serve the Lord, then He will meet their needs and expand their hopes and dreams way beyond what they could ever imagine. I hope that the impact is of course from a loving side, for a woman who means a great deal to me, that people will recognize the great ministry and the great love that she had and the great blessing that she provided for others. And again, I think it is that they can see in her the ministry that she provided, and maybe will develop a new sense of commitment to ministries and opportunities that they are given.